Welcome to the Rundown from Down Under. My name is Buddy Pulley, joined by me, myself, and I yet again. Shane Van Gisbergen had another top 10 finish this weekend at Kansas Speedway. Honestly, man, a hell of a day for him. I give him and that whole 2017 a whole lot of credit for this one. They really struggled through the early portions of this race. And that's no surprise. We've seen that out of Shane all year. It's normally stage one, stage two. He kind of inches his way forward, but in these playoffs, it's time to turn up the wick. And I said during the Bandwagoners Guide for the Xfinity Series playoffs, if you haven't watched that, definitely go watch that. That no one is better than turning up the wick than SVG, and it was time to do so. So, I was a little bit worried when they came out the gate and they were running really back half of the top 20, back half of the top 30 there for a while. Or in 25th, and then worked his way into the top 20 midway through the race. And then obviously he ended up finishing where he did. We'll talk about that here in a second. It is a testament, though. If you guys didn't watch the rundown from last week, we had my good buddy Jeremy Taylor on, who works at Kaulig Racing. He was very adamant and was very emphatic when talking about the potential that Kaulig had coming into these playoffs. He felt like that they were going to bring a lot of speed, and they were going to they were saving a lot of tools and a lot of tricks for the playoffs to really make a run at this. And we saw AJ. I'm not exactly sure where AJ ended up. My eyes were locked on the 97 or wherever he was on the leaderboard. But we saw Actually, I think AJ kind of struggled, not come to think of it. But Shane came out the gate, and for this to be, I'm pretty sure this is his first mile and a half since Charlotte in May, which is a long time and a lot of experience ago. And I think this is only his third mile and a half. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's only his third mile and a half, maybe fourth. He obviously, really, Vegas, he barely ran. He ran, 20 laps and ended up blowing up. And then, Texas. He had an okay run at Texas. And then Charlotte, he had a, top 15 run there. But for this to be, Kansas is a fickle racetrack. It's one of those tracks, we say it's almost like the Darlington of mile and a halves. Darlington's a mile and a third. It's its own animal. And we saw Shane. He did pretty good in the spring race, and then once he came back in the fall race at Darlington, he did what he does best, and that's improve throughout the race. He ended up finishing top 10. We all know this. We go watch the rundown from down under. We talked about it, but Kansas is one of those tracks where you got to inch up to it. The speed is made inches from the fence, and the closer you get to that fence, the more speed there is. Literally by mere inches. If you can get, even if you're 3 inches off the wall, if you can get 2 or even an inch off the wall, that's more speed. That's a tenth. That's a tenth in those last 6 inches up to the fence. So it's a difficult track to run, especially if you're not used to ripping the boards. And obviously this is totally new to Shane. So it didn't entirely surprise me that he ran where he did at the beginning of the race, but it did. Obviously they had some strategy go their way there at the end, but you still strategy works in NASCAR, and it can swing a bad day or a midday into a really good day. But there's something to be said. No, I misspoke there. It could turn a really bad day into an okay day. Rarely does it turn a mediocre day into a pretty great day, like it did for Shane. And it's a testament to the fact that he was able to work his way up through the middle portions of this race to where they can employ that strategy and be able to gain the positions that he could gain. And it also takes Shane being able to retain those positions. That's something he's been excellent at all year long. He restarted, I believe, don't quote me, sixth. So somewhere around there, 6th to 10th range, and he held it. He held it. He he didn't get swallowed up by guys that were on different strategies, and a lot of those cars behind him were cars that were faster than him throughout basically the entire race. And he didn't let that phase him. He didn't crack at all. Well, not that we expected him to, but he didn't budge. He kept it on the straight and narrow and ended up finishing 8th. Just another solid top 10 day. And that, you'll see in the thumbnail, he's in playoff form. That was playoff form. That was something I expected Shane to come out of this race with a top 15. I thought if he came out here with the top 15, you know what, that's great. I'll be 100% honest with you. Jeremy said it last week. He thinks there's a pathway for Shane to the Final Four. I don't 100% buy it. I was really banking on this round, him going out and maybe not necessarily winning the Roval, but that being his big money maker as far as points. But I was wrong. They were able to put themselves in position, and clearly they had a good enough car to run inside the top 10. And hey, I mean, you have guys like Justin Allgaier getting a wreck. You have these other playoff contenders screw up, and Kansas is for whatever reason notorious for that. And you stay on the straight and narrow, and you have a solid day like Shane tends to put together, and you don't make mistakes, you're gonna end up in the top 10. So again, kudos to Shane. Hell of a run. Really proud of that team. Really proud of him. Talladega's next. We'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do, let's take a look at the top 10 results from Kansas Speedway and the playoff standings after. Taking a look at the results from Kansas Speedway, it was Eric Almirola eking out Cole Custer to get his second victory of the season. The aforementioned Custer does finish second after a brilliant run and a brilliant battle with third place finisher Chandler Smith. Fourth place in his second Xfinity start was Connor Zilic. He finished fourth and started fourth, much like he did in his first Xfinity start, starting where he finished. Sheldon Creed finishes in the fifth position. Brandon Jones in sixth. Obligatory fuck Austin Hill. He finishes in seventh. Shane Van Gisbergen, of course, finishes in the eighth position. Jesse Love in ninth. And Riley Herbst rounds out your top 10. Taking a look at the playoff standings, Cole Custer is your leader, 41 points above the cut line. Chandler Smith is in second, 36 above the cut line. And Austin Hill is third, 26 points up. Sam Mayer is fourth, 13 points up. Sheldon Creed is fifth, 10 points up. Shane Van Gisbergen is in the sixth position, 8 points above the cut line. Jesse Love in seventh, +3. Riley Herbst in eighth, +1. And Justin Allgaier, after a crash, goes from the points lead down to ninth in points, 1 point below the cut line. AJ Allmendinger for Kaulig Racing is -13. Parker Kligerman is -15. And Sammy Smith is in 12th, -23. So as you saw there, Shane is +8 above the cut line. He is sixth in the playoff standings going into Talladega. He is running double duty at Talladega again. And he had two pretty good runs going. Especially in the Xfinity race. He was fourth on the final restart before running out of gas. Now, as he said before, these things are a bit of a crapshoot, which they in fact are. But I mean, I think the key for Shane, look, stay out of trouble, man. If you could stay out of trouble, a lot of these wobblers, as he puts it, take each other out at the end of these things. And if he could stay out of trouble and at least stay in the lead pack, it's a very good chance that he could leave even higher up in points than sixth and +8 above the cut line. So I mean, it's just playing a smart race. In Kaulig Racing, I mean, they are spectacular on super speedways. AJ's won here at Talladega. Josh Williams is an experienced plate racer. I think those three guys get locked together. I don't know if they're bringing a fourth car with Daniel Dye or not, but you get three of those Kaulig cars together, and a lot of times they're hard to beat. On to the Cup race. He is running Cup this weekend. He led laps at Talladega in the spring and actually had a shot to win it within the last handful of laps. Again, though, crapshoot. It's one of them deals. If he can stay out of trouble, I think he's shown some promise on these super speedways, but it's just going to be, it's one of those, it's when we break out the old saying, that's why we run the race. He's driving the WeatherTech car in both races, so hopefully they will end up clean and pearly white at the end of them. Other than that, I think that's all for this week's edition of the Rundown from Down Under. Make sure if you haven't watched the Xfinity Series Playoff Bandwagoners Guide, even though we've already run a race, doesn't matter. You can learn a little something about the history of the Xfinity Series and also the playoff drivers for this year. And of course, subscribe. Please subscribe. We're just under 150 subscribers from that 1,000 mark that we're going for. So please help us out there. Make sure you like, comment on this video, and make sure you listen to this week's edition of the Big Better Small Blade podcast again. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll see you next week.